faithfully conveying value and interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally Talking Books. In this episode, we'll explore the philosophy of Nintendo, subtitled Unique Creativity, Dreams, and Love, authored by Inoue Sato. Perhaps you remember the 2016 Rio Olympics closing ceremony, where Japan, as the next host, made its grand entrance, and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's appearance sparked audience frenzy. Turns out, the Prime Minister emerged dressed as Super Mario from a pipe. This game character became a national icon at the world's premier sports event, showing how deeply he resonates globally. Super Mario's creator is Nintendo, named the world's most outstanding company by Businessweek. So how did Nintendo create iconic games like Super Mario? And how has it dominated the fast-changing gaming industry for years? Many have long sought this answer. Yet details about Nintendo's operations remain scarce, with journalists routinely denied access. Nintendo guards its operational secrets, fearing competitors might steal strategies, making books on its inner workings virtually non-existent. The author, Inoue Sato, previously worked at Japan's Business magazine. This magazine maintained rare access to Nintendo executives, allowing Sato exclusive interviews with top brass, including third president Hiroshi Yamauchi. Through 3 years of interviews, Sato gained deep insights into Nintendo's philosophy. The philosophy of Nintendo draws directly from these conversations. The book reveals Nintendo's unique business model and how it crafts beloved products. In essence, focus on entertainment and move users through creativity. Today we'll examine this book through two lenses. First, Nintendo's 129-year journey from 1889 to 2018. What challenges shaped its growth? Second, Nintendo's business philosophy, which is the secret to its success. But before we start, I need to mention that since this book is about Nintendo, the game company, it inevitably mentions many game consoles and product names. If you're a gaming enthusiast, you'll definitely be familiar with them. If you're not familiar with these games, don't worry, it won't affect your understanding of the book at all. So let's dive into the first part and learn about Nintendo's growth journey. To make it easier to remember, I've divided Nintendo's growth into 4 periods based on product releases and business scope. So let's start with its first period. Many people know Nintendo through game-related products like the Famicom and Super Mario. But did you know, Nintendo wasn't originally a company that developed games and consoles. Nintendo was founded in 1889 as a family business, primarily producing playing cards. With accurate foresight, it became the industry leader in the 1920s. And in 1949, Hiroshi Yamauchi, at age 22, took over Nintendo from his father, becoming the third president. Yamauchi led Nintendo for 52 years. His contributions were immense. You could say without him, there would be no Nintendo as we know it. But early in his tenure, he did some ridiculous things. At that time, Yamauchi expanded into multiple fields. He predicted that after the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, cars would become widespread in Japan. So he started a taxi company. Seeing the rise of instant noodles, he also opened an instant noodle production company. When Disney became popular in Japan, he began producing Disney-themed playing cards, lunchboxes, and other merchandise. As a result, due to blindly expanding production, products didn't sell, leading to inability to repay debts, bringing the company to the brink of bankruptcy. Fortunately, a savior appeared, the gaming genius Gunpei Yokoi. Gunpei Yokoi. Initially at Nintendo, he was an equipment maintenance worker. Normally, his job was easy, and he often tinkered with small inventions. Once he assembled a toy resembling a mechanical hand, which Yamauchi saw while inspecting the workshop. Yamauchi found it interesting and asked Yokoi to improve and mass produce it. This became the Ultra Hand. The Ultra Hand sold over 1 million units, becoming Nintendo's most successful product of the year. Later, They developed other popular toys like the Love Tester and the Bean Gun, helping Nintendo escape its debt crisis. Yamauchi saw Nintendo's future direction in entertainment from Yokoi, which was another display of his talent. He had sharp intuition, often seizing industry opportunities and making major decisions quickly. Afterwards, many of Nintendo's strategic decisions relied on Yamauchi's extraordinary intuition. So Yamauchi disposed of the taxi and food companies, investing all resources into toys and entertainment products. Nintendo's development entered its second period, focusing on entertainment. With the rise of electronic games in the 1970s, Nintendo naturally entered this field. In 1980, they introduced the handheld Game & Watch, which sold extremely well, clearing all debts and accumulating a large startup fund. With that money, Nintendo heavily invested in home console development. Meanwhile, trusting his intuition, Yamauchi terminated all large arcade projects. Remember, arcades were booming then, with big profits, and Nintendo had invested heavily, even creating a subsidiary dedicated to them. This decision baffled many employees, but under Yamauchi's authority, it was executed effectively. Soon after, arcades became obsolete, and Nintendo made another correct choice. In 1983, Nintendo launched the Famicom, a home console. In China, the popular Little Tyrant console was modeled after this Famicom. Thanks to Super Mario's success, the Famicom sold worldwide. Nintendo established its reputation in gaming, becoming synonymous with video games. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, Nintendo dominated home consoles, though its reign didn't last long. Soon, Sony emerged. The two sides began competing in gaming. For the first decade, starting in 1994, Nintendo was on the back foot, marking its third development period. In 1994, Sony launched the PlayStation PS, selling over 100 million units worldwide. Meanwhile, Nintendo's rival product, the N64, sold only 30+ million units, causing its fall from grace and making people wonder, why did the gaming giant stumble? The reason was Nintendo over-engineered this console. Hardware capabilities leaped too high, suddenly raising game development barriers. Game development now required exponentially more time, funding, and risk. Existing developers couldn't keep pace, and even Nintendo's own team found it too difficult. At launch, the N64 had only 2 playable games, far too few to satisfy consumers. Meanwhile, Sony provided developers with an excellent working environment. Many developers switched to Sony, including those behind famous franchises. Take Final Fantasy. The PlayStation ended up supporting over 1,000 games, steering consumers towards Sony. In 2000, Sony released the PS2, while Nintendo launched the GameCube NGC. The GameCube increased supported games to 280 and lowered prices from its predecessor. You'd think Nintendo would succeed now, right? But the GameCube sold just 20+ million units versus PS2's 130 million. Another defeat. Why did capable hardware with more games still fail? Nintendo's leadership reflected. President Satoru Iwata realized they'd ignored a critical shift. Fewer people played games, hurting console sales. As for PS2's success, Iwata believed many bought it as a cheap DVD player. Back then, the PS2 cost less than half the price of a dedicated DVD player. Based on this insight, Iwata set Nintendo's strategy upon becoming president in 2002. Expand the player base by attracting non-gamers. Thus began Nintendo's fourth period, revitalization. Here's an interesting aside. When choosing a successor, everyone expected Yamauchi's son-in-law Minoru Arakawa to win, but shockingly he picked Iwata, who'd only joined 2 years prior. Yamauchi's reasoning was simple. Iwata had a software-first mindset. He prioritized game development, but in fact, Iwata had many strengths. He was proficient in software development, gentle in temperament, not autocratic, and open to diverse opinions and talents, perfectly complementing Yamauchi. After taking office, Iwata reformed corporate management, shifting Nintendo from authoritarian role to collective leadership. Unlike Yamauchi, who relied on intuition, Iwata used scientific analysis and data-driven decision-making. Under Iwata's strategy to expand the player base, Nintendo launched two consoles: a handheld NDS featuring innovative dual screens, one touch-enabled, a novel concept in 2004. With games like Brain Age and Nintendogs, it attracted non-gamer adults, making NDS an instant bestseller. The other product was the Wii Home Console, featuring motion sensing controls. Bundled with sports games, it went viral globally, even captivating seniors. Queen Elizabeth II became addicted. Former US President Obama even brought it into the White House. Julie, the Wii expanded the gaming demographic. These two products brought massive success to Nintendo. In Business Week's 2009 ranking of top global companies, Nintendo claimed first place, surpassing second place Google and third place Apple. By now, you've gained a fundamental understanding of Nintendo's journey. Next, we'll explore Nintendo's business philosophy, the secret to its success. I have distilled 6 principles from this book, covering product development, market strategy, and organizational management. I'll illustrate each with real Nintendo case studies. First, 3 product development principles revealing how hit products are made. Principle 1, focus on bringing joy through creativity. Nintendo's core tenet. Yamauchi believed entertainment differs from necessities. People tolerate difficult necessities but learn to use them. That unsatisfactory entertainment, users abandon it immediately. So for entertainment products, only when creativity is truly captivating will users come and spend. That's why Nintendo values creativity so highly. Their products constantly surprise and delight. Take the Wii controller, for example. Back in 2006, most game controllers had buttons everywhere, front, sides, you name it. That design was brutal for newcomers. Since Nintendo's Wii strategy was expanding the player base, an overcomplicated controller would have sunk the whole plan. Plus, wired controllers cluttered living rooms, total eyesores. So Nintendo committed to wireless simplicity. Easy in theory, but reducing buttons was tough. Since existing games needed complex inputs, developers tried prototypes: oval buttons with motion sensors, touchscreen virtual controls, all rejected. What now? Inspiration struck from cameras. Using CMOS sensors to track movements, instantly mirroring actions on screen. With simple additions, it handled all Nintendo games. They finalized the design as a TV remote, familiar, living room friendly, and beginner easy. And so the first remote-style controller was born. So intuitive it needed no manual. Later, the Wii channel even let it switch TV channels, completing its transformation into a universal remote. Next up, the second product development principle, Yokoi's philosophy. It means lateral thinking with mature technology, applying outdated tech in clever new ways. In other words, it's not about chasing cutting-edge tech. Even outdated tech can create popular products. This concept was proposed by Gunpei Yokoi, hence called Yokoi's philosophy. The Game Boy handheld exemplifies this reuse of mature technology. Development began in late 1980s when color LCDs were mass-produced. Handhelds could have adopted them, but Yokoi insisted on monochrome displays. He believed handhelds should be compact, energy efficient, and affordable. Color screens were power-hungry, hard to see outdoors, and expensive. When released, its advantages shone through. Despite monochrome, it displayed clearly, ran 35 hours on 4 batteries. With hits like Tetris and Pokémon, Game Boy conquered the world. By contrast, Sega's 1990 color handheld flopped. Though innovative, it failed spectacularly. 6 batteries lasted just 2 to 3 hours, and at 500 grams with batteries, it was pocket unfriendly. But this wasn't Yokoi's philosophy's peak application. In 2018, Nintendo launched a toy using simple, outdated material, cardboard. Printed cardboard sheets could be assembled using tutorials, then integrated with console parts for interactive play. This simple cardboard kit sold for about 400 renminbi. It sparked buzz. Cardboard with Nintendo's logo multiplied in value, mastering mature tech. Third product principle: if a game can be improved, modify it relentlessly, no matter what. The book uses a vivid metaphor for this philosophy. Like everyone sitting ready to eat when someone suddenly whisks the table away. The Legend of Zelda is one of Nintendo's flagship franchises. At the time, development of The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess was nearly finished, with post-production and foreign translations ongoing. But Shigeru Miyamoto, head of game development, hmm, told the team the protagonist's stay in the starting village was too short, just 1 day, and must be changed to 3 days. Role-playing games usually have a starting village where players learn the story background and get familiar with game controls. Miyamoto felt 1 day wasn't enough, so he proposed this change. On the surface, changing from 1 day to 3 seems simple, but at that stage, game development was in the final phase, with all programming and testing done. Making the change would take a lot of time and likely miss the release date. Plus, it had already been delayed once, so they couldn't afford another holdup. But the dev team had no choice. They worked overtime to make the changes, and luckily the product launched on time. This wasn't the only time it happened. When Kirby's Adventure was set for release, with 26,000 units already produced, development director Shigeru Miyamoto still forced the game to be canceled. Because after seeing it, he had a strong urge not to play, but he also spotted many strengths that, if polished, could make it outstanding. In the end, Miyamoto's call was right. The game was delayed for 1 year and 3 months. When it relaunched, it sold incredibly well, blowing past expectations. Those 3 points are Nintendo's core principles for product development. Now, let's see how Nintendo handles service after selling their products. This is the fourth principle, a service spirit that spares no cost. That sounds easy, but how it's done and to what extent varies hugely among companies. And how does Nintendo put this into practice? I'll share 2 examples to explain. First example, when the Wii console launched, YouTube had tons of videos, including ones of players misusing it by swinging the controller too hard, causing the wrist strap to detach. The controller flew off, hit walls, and some even threw it on purpose. Obviously, this was trolling. But even then, Nintendo responded fast. Within a month of launch, they reinforced the strap strength and offered free replacements for all 3.2 million units sold worldwide. The next year, Nintendo released a controller protector, which took nearly a year and dozens of prototypes to finalize. Nintendo provided it free to all Wii owners, covered shipping costs, and ultimately distributed over 15 million protectors at no charge. In Iwata's view, Nintendo covering these massive development and shipping costs was only natural. Now, a second example, a Japanese customer's broken NDS was sent to Nintendo's service center. A week later, he received a replacement and was shocked upon unboxing. Not only was the console brand new, but his original stickers were perfectly reapplied. The screen protector was also included in a separate bag, positioned identically. This service ethic earned Nintendo widespread acclaim. Before video games, Nintendo was a toy company. They understood how deeply children value their toys. A single sticker makes a toy uniquely theirs. Even identical toys hold different meaning. Nintendo believes entertainment companies must prioritize user satisfaction for longevity. Next, let's discuss corporate management's crucial aspect, market strategy. How does Nintendo approach it? Nintendo refuses to expand beyond its core competencies, staying within its capabilities. This is our fifth principle. They've had countless opportunities to diversify, but consistently declined. Their core value is gaming, sustaining interest in it. Venturing outside would dilute Nintendo's identity. Beyond simplicity and fun motion games, the Wii's success owed much to another feature: the Wii channel. Like a TV box, it connected online for news, shows, and more, helping sell 100 million consoles. Has meant massive user numbers, and users translate to profit. Many companies expressed interest in advertising. If Nintendo pursued this, it would generate staggering revenue. But Nintendo refused, believing the Wii channel shouldn't bear excessive functions. Consoles should exist solely for gaming. Another product, the 2004 launched NDS console, also offered non-gaming services. News, weather forecasts, baseball scores, even food delivery. Does this sound familiar? Exactly. Smartphones today include these features. Yet Nintendo achieved this over a decade ago. They could have transformed the NDS into an info platform and developed smartphones. But Nintendo didn't. After gaining market share, they didn't expand further. They returned to their core, making games. Thus, despite its long history, Nintendo remains relatively small in scale. Online, many jokingly call Nintendo a cottage workshop. As of 2018, it had just 5,000 plus employees versus Sony's 1,220,000 plus. The final principle concerns internal organizational management. How does Nintendo generate endless creativity? By fostering seamless collaboration within the company. In startups, cross-department teamwork is relatively easy. But for large firms with thousands of employees, interdepartment synergy is challenging. Under Hiroshi Yamauchi, Nintendo had multiple development departments for hardware and software, each operating independently with little cooperation. Nintendo One, for instance, different versions of the same game series, say home console versus handheld, were handled by separate teams. This created internal friction, hindering healthy growth. As mentioned earlier, when Satoru Iwata became president, he reformed internal structures, personally leading game development to bridge departments. Take Brain Age. While the planning and development department handled it, Iwata borrowed Koichi Kawamoto from the information development department. Kawamoto contributed invaluable insights that greatly aided the game's development. Meanwhile, to convey company philosophy to employees, Iwata shifted from Yamauchi's reclusive style by frequently meeting developers, compiling interviews into collections on the corporate website for all to see. This aimed to heighten employees' sense of urgency about gaming's future, motivating them to contribute more passionately. To boost engagement, Nintendo typically launches new projects with small teams first. These teams aren't necessarily senior staff, but usually developers who brainstorm ideas around project goals. For example, during Brain Age's 2005 development, Iwata involved multiple departments, even non-developers, from the outset. The game's core concept came from a female network administrator, while facial recognition tech was proposed by another junior employee. Unstuck, teams sometimes post challenges internally, inviting colleagues to collaborate on solutions. Through these reforms, Nintendo's hardware and software departments integrated tightly, collaborating early on NDS and Wii, exchanging unexpected solutions that reclaimed market dominance. All right, let's summarize Nintendo's 6 principles for product development. Prioritize creativity to move users, Nintendo's core tenet. Embrace Yokoi's philosophy. Rethink obsolete tech. Refine relentlessly. Modify games whenever improvable. In user service. Spare no cost, putting customers first. For market strategy, focus exclusively on entertainment. Never exceed capabilities. In organization management, break internal barriers for cross-department synergy. Finally, remember, even with these principles, success isn't guaranteed. The 2006 Wii succeeded, but its upgrade Wii U failed, while the newer Switch triumphed again. So, the gaming industry is one where effort is human, but success is divine. This is the origin of Nintendo's name. Nintendo entrusts fortune to heaven while focusing wholeheartedly on perfecting its craft. Now we understand, this book reveals Nintendo's success logic. persistently using creativity to move users and bring joy. This sounds simple, yet it's incredibly hard. When opportunities arise across fields, few companies resist temptation. Yet Nintendo achieved it, and that's the essence of its success philosophy. All right, that concludes our interpretation. Keynotes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.